남의 남의 기회고, 남의 기회에서. Hello, I this is the second attempt I'm making to share the video messages. Well, I'm done with using like sutra books and other books that I use for the Buddhist church. I've done it. But it's been interesting. I have now a new friend from England and another friend from India. I just had chanting with my friend from Pennsylvania, another friend from nearby Orange County, I'm sorry, Long Beach, and myself in Long Beach, California, and a new friend from India. I realize, I suppose this is part of what's happening in many Zen centers and temples around the world, that as we are sort of constrained, our activity is limited, our, I guess, desire to stay connected with people are still strong. So it's kind of manifesting in different ways. I wanted, and then as this is happening, I had a wonderful opportunity to share a Dharma message. It's more like my experience, but it's been so far the source, and I'm soon be running out of that resource. So I'll be probably sharing more of the other teachers' teachings that are available in Japanese. There's just so many great teachers. Wonderful. I'm just happy that we can have this sort of dialogue or directly explore the wisdom from the ancient teachers and the teachers who are active in modern days. And that's my basic motive. I very much enjoyed my life in Japan, being immersed in traditional culture, but I was a bit lost in that tradition. Maybe you see that previous other video, you may just realize how much struggle I had. Buddhism, it's a new friend from India. She mentioned that she has the Hindu background, but then I mentioned that well, Buddhism by nature is a little different. Um, I don't know compared to what, but in a sense that it often helps us deepen our own roots. Like if you have a Jewish background, Catholic background, Christian background, Zen practice is possible. And I mentioned this, I guess, in one of the videos, but my primary hope is that the way I got to be back in touch with where I come from, you know, I hope that whatever you digest will take you back to your roots. You don't have to define where exactly you have to be, but I guess feel comfortable whether you come where you come from instead of sometimes denying your roots origin. Every culture has its beauties, and every institutionalized religious organizations have its history, which it's a group of people who share different values. And when people share different values, there are politics. That's been my experience. Now, enough of that. I, like I said, I had a great chance to share my experience and thought with my Canadian friends in Nova Scotia. There are several groups, monastic, lay, and among them is a group called Zen Nova Scotia. I highly recommend the teacher who's the founder of this new Sangha in Canada, Reverend Koun Franz. He has a podcast, and he is one of my, how should I say, colleague, who he and I work for the Soto Zen Buddhist organization in North America. And he's been a driving force to sort of keep us stay innovative, but maintaining the roots in a tradition. So he's been somebody I've been admiring deeply, and personally grateful for everything he's been doing in Nova Scotia. I have this huge sense of indebtedness to all Canadian friends, immigrants, Canadians, First Nations, um, you know, Canadians of European descent. All of them are having a source of my inspiration. And just as a country, I always respect the country wherever I live. So I'm hoping that I can be somewhat useful to his group Sangha. I was actually always hoping for that I would have some opportunity. So he gave me generously the opportunity. And then it has to start from my own personal experience in Canada, which has something to do with the theme I think I talked about, which is the universal gateway. I had a chance to attend their online meeting, Zen practice, and they were sort of going through what we call full bodhisattva vows. Full bodhisattva vows, there are many translations. The one I often chant is beings are numberless. We vow to save them or free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. We vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, and we vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. We vow to realize it or embody it. And these verses that we chant are something unlike sutras we memorize and go through. Sometimes we're encouraged to really evaluate, sort of chew on each letter, each word, and confirm the meaning and how that matters to us. And so that's the sort of practice my friends, the Koun and his members were doing. And among them, one particular line that often leaves a great impression on me is that Dharma gates are boundless, infinite. And I'm not an academic person, as you can tell, but it just brought me back how I encountered this chapter, this particular sutra of Universal Gateway, and how Universal Gateway, my favorite part of that sutra is how it talks about, the statesmen, politicians, rich man, poor man, children, boys and girls, people from all walks of life are there for us to show us the path. The Bodhisattva's compassion, Bodhisattva's vows manifest in different forms, in forms of deities, devas, even ghosts, all different forms. And then it's us who sort of chooses which one is supposed to be our teachers, which one's supposed to be the right ones, and which ones are the wrong ones or evil ones. And we hesitate often to take the plunge and try to see what the whole experience of encountering the devas, encountering the Buddhas, encountering teachers, and encountering those you don't necessarily agree with, or you might even fear, will teach us I started developed my connection with Canada in 1996 when I was, 16. As a part of my attempt, I guess, to brush up English. Well, first of all, I have to say I was very fortunate to have that option back then. I was able to find my way to Winnipeg, Manitoba, to study English there. The reason why I picked Winnipeg was it was the cheapest option, and I was looking for a place where I'm not tempted to speak my mother tongue. So one of my teachers in Japan suggested I should go there. There, I had an amazing experience. When I say amazing, eye-opening experience. There were good and bad. I had an opportunity to teach in one of the local elementary schools in downtown area, known to be one of the poorest areas. Many First Nations were there. First Nations children who are known to be a thief, even among teachers. Like, the principal comes and tells me to be careful about certain students. I would not imagine something like that in Japan. I mean, there are always troublemakers, troublesome kids. Teaching them, sharing their time. All the kids always told me those bad words because I was still learning English. Even in high school days, the first day I went to school, one of the French Canadian came up to me and said, "Oh, I have to teach you the most important word all teenagers in Canada should know." And he said it starts with ASSH. It wasn't exactly like how do I say, peaceful place, but it gave me the whole, I guess, rawness of life, reality of life. That's also where I learned that if you just leave a bicycle there on the street for 5 minutes unlocked, it's gone. Yeah. I also met some immigrant Canadians who are immigrants from Bosnia and Herzegovina, who are also among the classmates. Bosnian war was going on, the refugees they were, and they shared with us once how they witnessed one of his friends killed by the bomb set in the car on the way back from school. Something I would not imagine ever that would happen to any of my friends in Japan. I met a mother with 2 daughters who shared with me the story of crossing the border to Pakistan from Iran to travel to Canada. And they did that in the middle of the night when, in disguise, it was a risky thing, and they succeeded crossing the border, and they traveled to Canada. They were washing clothes by hands in a bathtub, kind of what helped them. The Iranians, they shared with me the Iranian culture, how they have such strong ties with the Iranian neighbors. The younger daughter was in kindergarten, so I used to play with her. It wasn't like babysitting anything. I just went there, wanted to sort of breathe in the same air they were breathing. The daughter is now, I believe I heard that is one of the council members. The host mother who let me stay in Winnipeg also was from Bolivia. So she taught me some Spanish a little bit, and what it was like to live in Bolivia. I also met the First Nation who was among one of the basketball team members. Lance was his name. He was tall, very handsome, very strong. And one of the things he did, only later I discovered this, was that he would go out to the community activity representing the First Nations culture. He did a dance with all the feathers in a tribal with the outlook of representing that, the tribe. And he told me once that he would continue to honor his tradition as the First Nation and let people know what an amazing tradition he has inherited from the ancestors. I was very shocked in a pleasant way, inspired me so deeply. I had a bunch of African friends too. Their ability to master a language was just beyond my comprehension. I used to think that's cheating because they learn a language like in a matter of months. I asked them the secret, something to do with their background, of course. They were resilient and funny too. Impressive people that I remember. Such was the experience that I had the chance to have in Winnipeg. Also had a frostbite there in the winter. It was one of the coldest winters. And I had a cabin fever and I had to get out. If you have cabin fever, I think you can understand, but I was like minus 50 at the time. And it took me 45 minutes to, actually a little bit more maybe, to go to school. And my hands were totally exposed to the air. And I almost lost a couple of fingers. Miraculously, it grew back. But they said I was just happened to be lucky. So all those experiences that I had when I was 16, I think that was the age that mattered. I was so inexperienced, didn't know much about the world, but suddenly exposed to these new realities in the world. It just shook me awake, one experience after another. Both my grandfather, my great-grandfather, and my father were all Buddhist priests. And they sort of all encouraged us to expand our views through experiences, both maybe good and bad, which we all do in one way or another, as long as we continue to explore this life. My father, for example, spoke Chinese. He was a principal kindergarten. He loved kids, really. My father was a geologist. He taught science in high school, and he did some study on median tectonic line that runs through the Japanese archipelago, and how that contributed to the formation of minerals, the waterfalls, and also how that has contributed, has like co-relationship with the spiritual activities, like esoteric Buddhism. So if you see all the maps, you notice all the temples and temple shrines are located often along this tectonic line. It's just amazing how the ancient people had that kind of wisdom. Anyway, they emphasize the importance of going through this real life experience in order to broaden their views. So I'm not even just saying it's a Buddhist practice. In general, I think it's a wonderful experience, a wonderful thing. I often wonder if that's kind of what Shakyamuni Buddha experienced when he stepped out of his castle, realizing what the real world looked like. And there was a moment he was shaken awake, and he had to start his journey from there. I also like the story in a Buddhist tradition. It's called about the boy, actually, at Zenzai Doji. In Sanskrit, name is Siddhana Kumara, who traveled around looking for teachers, seeking for the wisdom from many different teachers. 53, I think that was the number. And these wise ones included young boys, young girls, different professionals, even like people who worked in all different industries, including, I guess, like brothels. And my practice of Zen, at least my personal experience was that, or maybe in anybody's practice, it's like that. It gets deepened through these encounters of wisdom. I often think of teachers as like traffic signs. Some signs are just very vague, go north or go south. And some signs are very specific. Just turn, go a couple blocks that way and then turn right and then turn left. Each sign is a little different, but each signs are meant for us to continue our path. And sometimes we do get lost with the signs still, but we're signs. One of the teachers I met and sort of transformed my practice was a German Jesuit priest who did practice in Kyoto, who did Zen practice in Kyoto. He brought me back to Buddhist practice, as I wasn't lay technically, but I felt like as to my lay Buddhist practice, which I very much enjoyed. I honestly miss those days. And that was the time where I truly, genuinely cherished each day as inexperienced practitioner. But that's where my beginner's mind always is. I always go back to that moment. I also met Bonnie Glassman 2006 when I started to came back to my home temple, started to help my father as a vice abbot. I was reading Beginner's Mind, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, and several other books, and I met Barney Glassman in Massachusetts. He advocated social actions. One particular book that attracted my attention was that it was about the book bearing witness, the retreat in Auschwitz, where Jewish people are killed. The genocide happened. The sort of interaction that I had with him, a very short interaction, inspired me to step into the world of social actions, which is well recognized in Japan. I worked for Brazilian Peruvian children. They had Japanese ancestors, and they were working for Toyota affiliated companies. It was 2008, before the recession started. And then recession happened. I worked for them with the Christian community in a local community. Somehow took me to city councilor's position. I think just timing worked. Opportunity was there, as one of the oldest council members were resigning. He saw me doing what I was doing. It was one of the most controversial things in the local community. I think I don't know how many people I upset by doing it. And I've also am aware that how many people I was able to inspire. I see many young people now getting engaged in this field. Right now, I've been in Long Beach for 6 years. I've had moments where I felt strong, invincible. I felt like I've been making achievement and had many moments of disappointment with totally the sense of total defeat. But I'm still continuing my mission. This is what I'm assigned to do, and this is what I'm supposed to do right now. And I'm discovering the unique role the Japanese American communities have been playing, transmitting Buddhism to the Western soil. And this message itself, I'm sharing with the community who's transmitting Buddhism, prajna, to the Canadian soil, which is a great honor for me. I said that this was supposed to be a talk on Universal Gateway. And I just went through several experiences that I had that shook me from inside. 2020 has been a chaotic year, painful years. Our patience has been tested. And I guess for those who can say that, it's still fortunate ones. I do consider myself as least affected at this point. I have friends who live right 1-2 blocks down the road, considering closing their business. Other friend stopped their restaurant. And then I have a few friends who moved out of LA, Los Angeles County, for the sake of their young families. At the beginning, actually at the end of 2019, I checked this, the Chinese zodiac thing. It's a favorite thing. It's one of the things Japanese people like to do. And like every year at the beginning of the year, we go through, okay, so what does this year's combination going to have to say? And an interesting thing, I still remember, I can't find the same thing same resource that I found, but it was supposed to be the same combination. Then for the year, the Vietnam War broke out. Supposed to be eventful, one thing after another. I'm saying this not to make you feel like, superstitious or anything. But, and at the end, it said this is supposed to be the year of confusion, but also a year of growth, maturity, to mature, to wisen up. And I'm trying to take that last line with me every time something happens, because things have been happening one after another, as you all know. And like I said, I don't mean to tell you to believe in fortune telling anything, but my point is, it is interesting to know that there were some years like that in the past. Ancient people describe that way. So if that's what it means to experience everything that we are experiencing this year, that's what it is. And then that's what's shaking us up from inside. And that's the gate. And that's my Dharma gate. One thing I admire about Canadians, every time I go out, spend time with people there, there's a sense of atonement over their own history as European immigrants taking over the land of First Nations. Repentance. And out of repentance, I sense this immense energy of determination to face this karma as a country, consequence that they caused. And I think it's because of this atonement that people have collectively. There's some sort of wisdom, mature kind of wisdom. Dogen, the founder of Zen Buddhism in Japan, Soto Zen Buddhism, also talks about the wonder, the power of atonement, how it can't be underestimated. I myself grew up feeling always a bit guilty being a Buddhist priest in Japan. Well, I don't know how many people in the Western world would agree or do not agree, but I always felt that somehow we are inexperienced, somewhat ignorant. Our views are limited, and that gets rigid. I know why, but and at the same time, I don't, for whatever reason, I felt guilty for being a Buddhist. And the thing that shook me from inside and made me realize that I could stay in this path, and I should be remaining in this path and contribute to the community. It was the Western Zen community, Western teachers. So although I worked for the organizations representing Japanese tradition, my spirit, mind rests upon the Western Zen community and how they helped me stay in this path, on this path. That sense of atonement, sense of guilt has always been there. I don't have it sort of overtake me, but it's there. And because of that, the whatever I do for the Zen communities in the West it's like an anchor. I have that. So that has been helping me stay sort of grounded. And then I feel there's something very similar in Canadian culture as well. Like I said, we are human organizations. So I know some people do see from whatever, I had a chance to get involved, the videos, you might idealize Buddhism, Buddhist practice. And that's where the pure intention is. And I hope you can sort of cherish that. But along the path, along the way, you may encounter some moments of disappointments. We are humans, organizations. So there are people valuing different things. When people value different things more genuinely, out of that sometimes comes politics, because beliefs have friction there. Some might have an experience of what you might perceive as corruptions. If you stand out in Japanese organizations, sometimes you get struck flat. When you are assertive, if you want to say something, you get struck because you're often in the pains and the butts. But often you're in pain when, as a society, they recognize that that is a pain. If it's not the pain, they don't feel it. So they don't even need to get bothered by it. What typically happens is you keep standing there. And if your intention, if your motive is well aligned with the central spirits of Soto Zen practice, Buddhist practice, and that's just something you can only figure out by yourself through deep contemplation, or often through failures, like myself. Yeah. then, but if your spirit is aligned with the central value, and you keep going, penetrating the gate, you have to penetrate the gates. You have to penetrate this universal gate. It's always open, but you have to walk through this gate with right mindset and determination. Then everything you penetrate will become the gate, Dharma gate. Like I said, we chant this Bodhisattva vows. Beings are numberless out there, and we vow to save them. All beings, all beings. And when you think about all beings, that includes those who make scam calls, those who are fueling this injustice in society. Those you can totally not agree. People of all different kinds, white, black, colored, Asian, African, Europeans, middle class for rich people, politicians, activists, householders, monastics, all beings. And it's just dawns on me sometimes what that means, you know, when we chant this verse. And I get surprised at how not too many people seem to be freaking out by chanting this verse. Avalokiteshvara's vows save all beings manifest, not just as a Superman or Wonder Girl, Wonder Woman. It takes all forms, because when we say the Dharma gates are infinite, you can't just draw a line in the sky and say, hey, I like this portion of the sky. You know, I say, I like this portion of the gate. I like the portion of mindful practice. I like the portion of chanting. I like the portion of liturgies. I like the portion of Dharma message, because that feels good. That feels right to my perception, agrees with my six senses. But then you see ghosts, demons, things that your six senses do not agree with. No, that's not a Dharma gate. that's unnecessary thing. And I do feel like often that's kind of you are losing the holistic view of what Dharma gates means. If you have pains in the leg during the sitting, that's the Dharma gate. One of the teachers in the head monastery told me. Dharma gates are infinite and boundless. If they are meditation, friendship, Sangha, family, separation, divorce, marriage, childbirth, parenting, fatigue, protest, martyr, quarantine, pandemic, genocide, war, corruption, failures, all kinds of winters, summers, falls, and springs of your life. I remember when I went to the head temple, I can't really put exact line, share the line that says, but the message that each mountain gate has is anybody who has the determination to walk through the gate is welcome. But then anybody who is just a little deluded, should I say, about, a little, I guess the practice, they just not, it's not the place. Dharma gates are often like that. I saw some young people who come to the temple thinking this would be the most peaceful place. The emotions are settled. Somebody would be there, like therapist, helping them out to calm down. It's not quite like that. And they get disappointed after a few days, and some people leave. Dharma gates, walking through the Dharma gates means to walk through all experiences that we have in your life and let them wake us, let them grow wise, just like 2020. And I hope that many of us can find 2020 as the Dharma gate to become wiser, mature spiritually. I'd like to thank again all my Canadian friends because this kind of, I guess, understanding came through my teenage experience, the time from my teenage, with all the Canadians of European descent, people from Middle East, South America, East Europe, China, and Japan, Southeast Asian countries, First Nations. So I don't think you need to always try to put them in the framework of Buddhism and say, hey, this is a Buddhist path. And that, I think that's why, that's why the gate, there's a gate is universal, universal gates are called such. Dharma gates are not limited. In Buddhism, it's boundless. I'll stop it there. I think that's all I said. Yes. So that was more or less the message that I had a chance to share with the Sangha members in Zen Nova Scotia. And I highly recommend checking out this group, this community, and I hope to find a way to contribute to communities. Anyway, thank you so much for taking your time and listening to this. Namkie, Namkie, oh, Namkie, so.